The rain-slicked envelope slipped from my fingers, tumbling into the gutter like a confession too heavy to hold. I watched it bob in the murky water, ink bleeding into gray, the words I had penned blurring into nothing. Words meant for her, but carved from the hollow ache in my own chest. In that instant, as thunder grumbled over Puget Sound, I knew. Every syllable I had ghostwritten for Ronan Whitaker had been a mirror, reflecting the love I could never voice to him. Elias Hawthorne had always been the shadow behind the spotlight, the quiet architect of other people's lives' narratives. At 28, with a freelance writing gig that barely covered his cramped queen and apartment rent in Seattle, he scraped by on the fumes of borrowed stories. But this job, this cursed, intoxicating commission, had cracked him open like a storm-split cedar. Ronan Whitaker, the brooding indie folk singer whose gravel-voiced ballads topped charts from Austin Dives to Brooklyn Lofts, had hired him 3 months ago, not for lyrics or liner notes, but for something more intimate: love letters. A dozen of them, each one a plea to win back his ex, Lila Voss, the ethereal photographer who had ghosted him after a whirlwind romance in New Orleans. Ronan had shown up at Elias's door unannounced, all broad shoulders and salt-streaked beard, smelling of whiskey and wet wool from the ferry ride over. "I need help saying what I can't," he had muttered, thrusting a dog-eared notebook into Elias's hands. "She's the one, man, but words, they tangle up in my throat." Elias, who had devoured Ronan's albums since college, tracks that wove heartbreak into harmony like veins of quartz and basalt, had nodded too eagerly. $500 per letter, wired up front. How could he say no? Now, standing under the awning of a Pike Place coffee cart, Elias retrieved the sodden envelope with trembling fingers. The paper tore easily, revealing fragments. "Your laugh echoes in the hollows of my ribs, a melody I chase through sleepless nights." He had written that line last week, staring at a photo of Lila that Ronan had provided, her wild curls and sun-kissed skin against Mardi Gras beads. But as the words reformed in his mind, they twisted. That laugh wasn't hers. It was Ronan's, low and rumbling during their late-night brainstorming sessions, when the singer would pace Elias's living room, strumming an unplugged guitar, vulnerability cracking his rock star facade. Elias crumpled the paper and shoved it into his pocket, the ferry horn wailing in the distance like a lover's unanswered cry. He had to finish the last letter tonight. Ronan was performing at the Tractor Tavern tomorrow, and he wanted it ready, to slip into Lila's hands backstage, a Hail Mary for reconciliation. Elias trudged up the hill toward home, the city lights smearing into halos through the drizzle. Seattle in November was a watercolor of grays, the kind that seeped into your bones and made you question if the sun had ever existed. His apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a brick building that creaked like an old ship, overlooking the Chihuly Garden and Glass Museum's glowing orbs. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of cold takeout and unwritten regrets. Elias booted up his laptop, the screen's glow casting his face in blue pallor. Ronan's notes littered the desk, scribbled phrases about jazz clubs in the French Quarter, stolen kisses under live oaks dripping Spanish moss. Elias had fleshed them out, infusing poetry he pulled from his own veiled longings, the way a touch could ignite like dry lightning over the Olympics, or how absence carved canyons in the soul. He typed the opening, "Lila," in the quiet hours when the city's pulse slows to a whisper, but his fingers faltered. Instead of her name, he saw Ronan's eyes, storm gray, flecked with gold like autumn leaves caught in a gale. Those eyes had lingered too long during their meetings, hadn't they? A brush of knuckles when passing a mug of black coffee, a pause in conversation that stretched like taffy. Elias shook his head, deleting the line. Focus. This was a job. Ronan was straight as the arrow of his guitar strings, married to his music and the women who orbited it like moths to flame. Yet doubt gnawed, persistent as the rain tapping the window pane. Last week, after a bottle of Pinot shared over revisions, Ronan had confessed fragments of his unraveling. Lila's abrupt departure after he suggested they move to Nashville, her accusations of emotional unavailability. I pour everything into songs, he had said, voice raw. Leaves nothing for the living. Elias had listened, heart pounding, offering nods and refills, his own unspoken truths curdling like milk left too long in the fridge. Now, as midnight crept in, Elias forced the words onto the page. The letter flowed, tender, aching, a tapestry of memory and promise. He described sunrises over Lake Pontchartrain that painted the world in honeyed light, walks along the Mississippi where secrets spilled like bourbon from a cracked flask. But woven through it all was the undercurrent of his own phantom life. The boy in rural Maine who had hidden crushes behind baseball gloves, the college theater major who scripted kisses he never claimed. By the time he signed it, Ronan James Whitaker, in looping script, the document spanned 2 pages, a love letter so visceral it felt like vivisection. He emailed it off at 2 a.m., attachment labeled, Final Plea for Lila. Ronan's reply pinged back instantly. Damn, Eli, you nailed it. Feels like I bled this out myself. Oh, you big. Beers after the show. Elias stared at the screen, thumb hovering over reply. Beers. Casual. Safe. But his pulse thrummed with the recklessness of a man teetering on a cliff. Wouldn't miss it, he typed, hitting send before sanity could intervene. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with ink and strings. Ronan leaning close, breath warm against his neck, whispering lines Elias had authored but never owned. He woke to gray dawn filtering through threadbare curtains, the city humming below like a distant chorus. Coffee brewed strong, black as the doubts swirling in his gut. Today was the performance. Today, Ronan would hand over the letter, and perhaps reclaim the life Elias had scripted from afar. But as he dressed, faded jeans, a flannel shirt rolled to elbows, boots scuffed from aimless walks along the Burke-Gilman Trail, Elias couldn't shake the premonition. The letters weren't bridges to Lila. They were confessions disguised. And tonight, under the tavern's amber lights, the truth might unravel like a poorly tied knot. The Tractor Tavern squatted on the edge of Fremont, its neon sign flickering like a heartbeat against the perpetual twilight. Elias arrived early, weaving through the crowd of flannel-clad hipsters and tattooed dreamers nursing IPAs. The air thrummed with anticipation, posters of past acts peeling from the walls. Names like Langhorne Slim and Damien Jurado, ghosts of Americana past. He claimed a spot near the stage, close enough to catch the scent of rosin and sweat when Ronan took the mic. The opener droned through a set of middling blues, but Elias barely registered it. His mind replayed the letters, each one a thread pulling tighter around his heart. The first had been tentative, a postcard from Seattle to New Orleans, evoking magnolia blooms and the faint brine of the Gulf. Ronan had called it perfectly haunted. The second delved deeper, reminiscing about a jazz festival where they had danced until dawn, bodies pressed in the humid crush. Elias had imagined himself there, not Lila. His hand in Ronan's, the world dissolving into saxophone wails. By the 4th letter, the veil thinned. Elias had poured in details unprompted. The way a lover's voice could anchor you in a storm, or how shared silences held more weight than symphonies. Ronan had texted back, "How do you do that? Make the ache feel alive?" Elias had stared at his phone for hours, crafting a neutral reply while his chest constricted. Now, as the stage lights dimmed and the crowd hushed, Ronan emerged from the wings. He looked every inch the Heartland troubadour uprooted to the coast. Faded Levi's hugging his lean frame, a chambray shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the tattoo of a compass rose over his collarbone, a nod to wandering souls. His acoustic guitar slung low, he adjusted the mic with calloused fingers, scanning the room. Their eyes met, and Ronan's mouth quirked in a private smile, the kind that bypassed crowds and pierced straight to the marrow. "Thanks for coming out on a night like this," Ronan drawled, voice like smoked oak. "Seattle's got that way of making you feel small, doesn't it? Like you're just a note in the rain's endless song." The audience murmured agreement, lighters flicking like fireflies. He launched into his set, tracks from his latest album, driftwood hymns, ballads of lost highways and lovers left in rear views. Elias swayed, lost in the timbre, each chord a hook in his flesh. Halfway through, Ronan paused, wiping sweat from his brow. This next one's new. Wrote it last week, after a long talk with a friend who knows how to put the chaos into words. He glanced at Elias again, deliberate. The opening riff unfurled, minor key, haunting, and then the lyrics. Your shadow dances in the corner of my eye, a ghost I chase through empty streets. If I could rewrite the miles between us, I'd pen them in the curve of your hand. Elias froze. Those weren't his album words. They echoed the third letter, the one about phantom touches in the pre-dawn hush. The song built, Ronan's voice cracking on the bridge. Tell me your secrets, and I'll trade you mine. Ink for skin, heart for line. The crowd leaned in, enraptured. But Elias's world narrowed to the man on stage, pouring out a vulnerability that felt stolen from his drafts. When the final note faded, applause erupted, but Elias clapped mechanically, pulse roaring in his ears. Backstage access was a perk of their collaboration. A lanyard slipped around his neck like a noose. He lingered in the green room's haze, cinderblock walls scrawled with set lists, a mini fridge humming softly. Ronan burst in post-encore, exhilarated, clapping Elias on the back. You see that? The crowd ate it up. That song. It's got legs. His touch lingered a beat too long, warm through the flannel. Elias swallowed, forcing a grin. Yeah, legs and soul. Where'd it come from? Ronan grabbed 2 bottles from the fridge, twisting caps with his teeth. You mostly. Those letters. They unlocked something. Made me see what I've been dodging. He handed one over, clinking bottles. Lila's here tonight. Front row. Gonna give her the last one after we talk. The words landed like stones in still water. Elias's beer turned bitter on his tongue. Right? The finale. Hope it sticks. Ronan's gaze sharpened, searching. You okay, Eli? Look like you've seen a ghost. More like written one. Elias shrugged, heat rising in his cheeks. Just the set. Hit close to home. They talked then, easy banter about chord progressions and Seattle's best faux spots, until a knock shattered the bubble. Lila Voss swept in, a vision in emerald silk and silver rings, her camera bag slung like a talisman. She was younger than her photos suggested, 25 maybe, with skin like polished walnut and eyes that sparked with guarded fire. Ronan, she said, voice a soft drawl, pulling him into a hug that Elias watched like a spectator to his own execution. Elias excused himself to the bar, ordering a whiskey neat to dull the edges. From his vantage, he saw them, heads bent close, Ronan's hand on her knee, the envelope sliding from pocket to palm. Lila read, lips moving silently, a smile blooming slow as dawn over the bayou. She looked up, tears glinting, and kissed him, fierce, forgiving, the kind of kiss that rewrote endings. Elias drained his glass, the burn a poor substitute for the ache blooming behind his ribs. He slipped out into the night, rain welcoming him like an old confidant. The walk home blurred, streets slick with neon reflections, the Space Needle a skeletal sentinel in the distance. By the time he reached his door, sobs racked him, silent and seismic. He collapsed onto the couch, phone buzzing with a text. She's staying. We talked. Your words saved us, brother. Beers tomorrow, my treat. Elias stared at the screen, thumb tracing the heart emoji Ronan had added unthinkingly. Saved us. But who had they damned? That night he didn't sleep. Instead, he opened a new document, fingers flying across keys. Not a letter for Lila, but one for himself. A litany of truths long buried. Ronan, in the spaces between your songs, I found my own refrain. He wrote until dawn, the words a purge, a prayer. When he finished, he saved it as unsent and deleted Ronan's number. Freedom tasted like ash, but it was his. Days bled into weeks, Seattle's winter wrapping the city in a shroud of fog and frost. Elias threw himself into new gigs, ghostwriting a tech bros memoir, scripting ad copy for a vegan startup in Ballard. The pay was steadier, the distance from heartbreak a bomb. He avoided Ronan's releases, skipped the coffee shops where buskers strummed his former muse's tunes. Friends noticed the change. His roommate, Theo, a barista with a penchant for bad poetry, cornered him one evening over ramen. "You're fading, man, like one of those old film reels. What's eating you?" Elias waved it off with a half-lie about deadlines. But Theo's eyes, sharp as Puget tides, held steady. "It's that singer, isn't it? The one with the letters." Theo had overheard enough during those marathon writing nights. Ronan's voice booming through speakerphone, laughter like thunder rolling in. Elias nodded, finally, the admission cracking the dam. Wrote his way back to her. Felt like I handed him my heart on a platter. Theo slid a bowl closer, steam curling like questions. "And if it wasn't her he wanted? Ever think the words fit someone else?" The thought lodged like a splinter, festering. Elias had dismissed it as wishful projection, the classic trap of the lovesick scribe. But Ronan's song that night, the lyrics lifted wholesale from Elias's prose, lingered, a breadcrumb trail leading nowhere good. February brought a thaw, tentative as a first thaw in Maine, where Elias had grown up amid lobster traps and lighthouse laments. He took to long runs along Discovery Park, feet pounding salt marsh paths, lungs burning with brined air. One afternoon, mid-stride, his phone chirped, a voicemail from an unknown number. Ronan's voice, tentative. "Eli, it's me. Lila and I. Things fell apart again. She left for Portland this morning. Said the letters were beautiful, but they didn't feel like mine. Like they were too. Pure. Call me? Need to talk." Elias slowed to a walk, heart hammering harder than his pace. Too pure. The words mocked him, a riddle wrapped in rejection. He deleted the message, but it echoed, burrowing deep. That evening, as sleet tapped Morse code against his window, a knock rattled the door. Elias opened it to Ronan, drenched and disheveled. A bottle of bourbon clutched like a lifeline. "Can I come in?" The singer's eyes were red-rimmed, beard unkempt, the compass tattoo peeking like a distress signal. Against better judgment, Elias stepped aside. Ronan paced the living room, words tumbling out in a rush. Lila's accusations of inauthenticity, how the letters had seduced her, but soured the reality. She said they sounded like they came from someone else, someone who actually knew how to love without the bullshit. He stopped, facing Elias, the air thickening. "It was you, wasn't it? The way you write. It's like you see straight through the noise." Elias's throat closed, the unsent letter burning in his mind. "It's my job, to make it real." Ronan stepped closer, close enough for Elias to smell the rain on his skin, the faint cedar of his cologne. "But it was real, Eli. Too real. That song I sang? Pulled it from your words because they fit. Not for her, for how I feel when we're talking late, like the world's just us and the words." Time fractured, the room shrinking to the space between them. Elias's pulse thundered, every nerve alight. "Ronan, you can't." "I can." Ronan's hand rose, hesitant, cupping Elias's jaw. The touch was electric, a spark jumping dry tinder. Their lips met, soft at first, exploratory, then deepening with the hunger of dammed rivers breaking free. Elias tasted salt and storm, Ronan's fingers threading through his hair, pulling him under. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed. "I've been writing to you," Ronan whispered, "all along, just didn't know how to say it." Elias laughed, broken and bright. "I know. I wrote them too." In the days that followed, the world reshaped itself in stolen moments. Lazy mornings tangled in Elias's sheets, Ronan's guitar propped against the wall like a silent witness. They co-wrote now, not letters but lyrics, verses that wove their truths into melody. Ronan came out in fragments. A quiet post on his feed about loving who you love, no labels needed. Backlash rolled in. Trolls and comments, a few canceled gigs. But supporters drowned them out, fans sharing their own stories of hidden hearts. Yet shadows lingered. Lila resurfaced in late March, an email to Ronan that he shared with Elias. Accusations of betrayal, claims that the letters had been a con. "You used him to get to me," she wrote, "and now you're discarding us both." Ronan deleted it, but the barb stuck, poisoning their ease. Elias felt it most acutely during Ronan's tour prep for a swing through the Southwest, Albuquerque sunsets, Austin honky-tonks. "What if she's right?" he confessed one night, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. "What if I was just the bridge?" Ronan pulled him close, voice fierce. "You were the destination, Eli. Always." But doubt is a persistent fog, and Lila's words summon storms. She appeared at a rehearsal in Capitol Hill, camera in hand, eyes blazing. "I need to see it," she demanded of Ronan. The truth behind the pretty words. The confrontation unfolded in a dimly lit studio, amps humming like judgmental bees. Lila turned to Elias, her gaze dissecting. "You wrote them for him, didn't you?" "I felt it, the way they didn't fit my edges." Elias nodded, chin lifted. "They fit mine." She laughed, bitter as chicory. "And you let him think they were for me. That's the betrayal, not his, yours. Ghostwriter in every sense." Ronan stepped between them, protective. "Lila, stop. It wasn't like that." But she wasn't done, hurling the envelope at Elias's feet. The last letter, creased and tear-stained. "Keep your fairy tale. Just don't pretend it started honest." She stormed out, leaving silence in her wake. Ronan knelt, retrieving the paper, but Elias recoiled. "She's right. I hid behind the job. Made you love a version of me that wasn't whole." Ronan rose, cupping Elias's face. "I love the whole mess. The writer, the doubter, the guy who runs in the rain to outpace his fears. That's you." They mended slowly, therapy sessions in a Belltown office where Elias unpacked his Maine boyhood. Closeted kisses behind boathouses, a father's stern silences. Ronan shared his own fractures. A Texas upbringing where faggot was currency in locker rooms, music his escape hatch. Together, they forged something resilient, scarred but shining. Spring unfurled in cherry blossoms along the waterfront, and Ronan's tour became theirs. A road trip in a battered Ford pickup, gigs in dusty venues from Santa Fe to Shreveport. Elias read from a chapbook of his own making, poems born of their union, no ghosts attached. Audiences wept, cheered, a chorus affirming the messy beauty of becoming. One night in a New Orleans courtyard, under stars thick as rue, Ronan proposed, not with rings, but with a notebook. "Write our story," he said, pen in hand. "No hiding." Elias took it, inscribing. In the end, the letters found their home, not on paper, but in the quiet spaces where two souls finally spoke the same language. They kissed to the distant wail of a saxophone, the city a benevolent witness. Betrayal's sting faded to lesson, conflict to catalyst. In loving without script, they discovered freedom's truest verse. Compassion for the hidden self, identity claimed not in isolation, but in tender, terrified tandem. Ronan's tour van rattled like a tin can on the outskirts of Austin, the Texas hill country rolling past in waves of live oak and limestone. Elias gripped the armrest, the notebook still warm in his lap, ink barely dry from that courtyard vow. It had been 6 weeks since New Orleans, 6 weeks of stitching wounds and scripting futures. But Lila's shadow clung, a burr in their bliss. She had gone public, a blistering Instagram post dissecting the deception, tagging Ronan's handle with screenshots of blurred letter excerpts. The internet ignited. Think pieces in Pitchfork on authenticity in art, Reddit threads dissecting queerbaiting, fans unfollowing in droves. Ronan downshifted around a curve, jaw set. "Ignore it, Eli. She's hurting, lashing out." Elias traced the notebook's spine, the leather worn from years of his secrets. "Hurting doesn't give her the right to rewrite us. Or you." The word still tasted new, like spring greens after a long winter. Back in Seattle, before the road, they had navigated the fallout together. Ronan issuing a statement, raw and unfiltered. Love isn't a plot twist. It's the song I've been humming all along. Elias had drafted it, but Ronan's voice made it sing. Now, on this ribbon of highway, the world felt vast enough to hold their truths. They pulled into a roadside diner just past Fredericksburg. Neon sign buzzing, Peach Pit Cafe, in peeling pink. Inside, the air hummed with grease and gossip. Truckers hunched over pie, a jukebox crooning Patsy Cline. They slid into a vinyl booth, orders of brisket and black-eyed peas arriving steaming. Ronan's boot nudged Elias's under the table, a silent anchor. "You ever think about going back?" Ronan asked, fork pausing midair. "To ghosting, for someone else." Elias met his gaze steady. "Not anymore. Tired of being the echo. Want to be the voice." Ronan's smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Good, because I need you up there with me. Not in the wings on stage. Duet on that new track." The invitation landed soft, seismic. Elias had sung in showers, mumbled harmonies in his apartment, but never before a crowd. "Me? I'm no performer. I'd freeze. You'd thaw, like you did that first night reading your poems in the Hill. Voice like aged bourbon. Smooth, with bite." Elias flushed, remembering the open mic at a Capitol Hill speakeasy, nerves liquefied by gin. He had recited unsent. The letter turned lament, to a room of strangers who leaned in like conspirators. Ronan had been there, front row, eyes locked like spotlights. Their meal stretched, conversation meandering from tour logistics to childhood haunts. Elias's summers crabbing off Bar Harbor, Ronan's cattle drives in the Panhandle. Laughter bridged the gaps, but as they paid and stepped into the humid dusk, Elias's phone vibrated. A text from Theo. "Dude, check the feeds. Lila's dropping a bomb. Podcast interview tomorrow. Says Ronan knew all along, used you as cover." The words chilled, sharper than the AC blast from the diner door. Ronan saw Elias's face fall, reaching for the phone. "What now?" Elias handed it over, watching Ronan's expression harden to granite. "She's spinning it, making me the villain, you the puppet." Ronan pocketed the device, pulling Elias into the van's cab. "Let her talk. We know the score. And tomorrow night, Austin, we show them ours." The gig was at the Continental Club, a South Congress institution with walls papered in vintage posters and a stage sticky with history. Elias paced backstage, palms slick, while Ronan tuned his guitar with ritual calm. The crowd murmured beyond the curtain, boots stomping to warm-up blues, laughter spiking like firecrackers. When the lights rose, Ronan took the mic, Elias a shadow at his side. "Evening, Austin. This one's for the ones who've ever written a letter they couldn't send." The opening chords rippled, and Elias stepped forward, voice tentative at first, then gaining ground. "In the margins of your melody, I found my refrain." The harmony wove seamless, their tones blending like smoke and scotch. The room hushed, then erupted whistles, whoops, a sea of raised glasses. Offstage, sweat slick and buzzing, Ronan kissed him fierce against the green room wall. "Told you. Magic." But magic has its mirrors, and Lila's podcast dropped at midnight. As they crashed in a Motel 6 on the edge of town, Elias couldn't sleep, scrolling the transcript on his phone while Ronan snored softly beside him. Her voice transcribed. He hired Elias knowing it was code, a way to test waters without risk. "I was the beard, unwitting. Broke my heart twice." The accusation twisted like barbed wire. Elias slipped from bed, stepping onto the gravel lot under sodium lamps. Stars wheeled overhead. Indifferent. Had Ronan known? In those early sessions, the lingering looks, were they flirtation or facade? He texted Theo. "Need truth. Did he ever mention her after the letters?" Theo's reply pinged swift. "Nah, man. It was all you in his stories. Lila was backstory. Comfort partial." Dawn crept in peach and gold, and they hit the road for Marfa. Pristine skies, art installations like alien bones in the desert. There, in a adobe casita rented via Airbnb, confrontation brewed. Over coffee black as crude oil, Elias laid it bare. Lila says you used me as cover. Knew the letters were us. Ronan set his mug down, deliberate, eyes storming. Bullshit. I was clueless at first. Thought I was chasing her ghost. But your words woke me up. Made me see I'd been writing to the wrong person all my life. Elias searched his face, finding only raw honesty. Promise. Swear on my sixth string. Ronan pulled him across the table, kiss sealing the vow. Marfa's magic held. A midnight stargazing, hands linked under the infinite. A poetry slam in a converted hangar where Elias read to thunderous applause. But the tour's rhythm exacted tolls. Long halls blurring state lines, venues where hecklers shouted slurs masked as jokes. In Albuquerque, a bar fight erupted post-set, some redneck decrying fairy folk music. Ronan's fist connecting before Elias could pull him back. Bruised knuckles, split lip, but the bond hardened, forged in adversity's fire. By Santa Fe, Elias's chapbook sold out at merch tables, fans queuing for signatures and stories. How'd you two find each other? A young queer kid asked, eyes wide. Elias glanced at Ronan, midstrum on an encore. In the spaces between the lines, Lila's narrative faded, drowned by their rising tide. Yet betrayal's echo lingered, a cautionary chord. One evening in a Taos hot spring, steam rising like prayers, Elias voiced it. What if doubt creeps back? What if I'm always the ghost in someone's story? Ronan traced the water's ripple on Elias's chest. Then I'll haunt you right back. Every night, every note. You're no shadow. You're the light bending through. They soaked until prunes set in, emerging renewed, skin scented with sulfur and promise. The tour arced eastward, gigs and humid nights that evoked Lila's bayou roots. In Houston, an invite arrived, her via mutual friends. Closure drinks. Ronan showed Elias the text, brow furrowed. Go, Elias said, surprising himself. Alone. Tell her our truth. Ronan returned at 2 a.m., smelling of bourbon and closure. She gets it now, said the letters felt like envy, not love. Wished us well. He collapsed beside Elias in their hotel bed, exhaustion etching lines. Missed you. Always here, Elias murmured, pulling him close. The road wore on, conflicts cresting in small betrayals. A missed call during a sound check, Elias's jealousy flaring at groupie banter. But each fracture mended stronger, conversations deepening like roots in clay. They co-authored a ballad, Ink and Ember, released as a single mid-tour lyrics of redemption, climbing charts with viral fervor. By late May, as they looped back west through Big Bend's stark beauty, Elias felt the shift. From scripted love to lived, betrayal had been the catalyst, forcing authenticity. In a ranger station overlook, canyon winds whipping, Ronan knelt again. This time with a ring, hammered silver etched with lyrics. Marry me, Eli. Not for show, for us. Tears stung, joy sharp as yucca spines. Yes. Word spread via socials. Fans toasting from afar. Lila even liked the post, a silent olive branch. The tour closed in Seattle. Homecoming at the Paramount. Sold out. Spotlights hot. Elias's voice soaring in harmony. As confetti rained, Ronan whispered mid-bow, our story's just starting. And in the afterglow, amid champagne toasts and tearful hugs from Theo, Elias knew the message etched in their arc. Compassion redeems the concealed, freedom blooms in claimed identity. Love, true, tangled, writes its own ending. Summer settled over the Pacific Northwest like a fever dream, wild and unrelenting. Elias and Ronan's engagement rippled through their circles. Theo throwing an impromptu barbecue in his queen and backyard, complete with fairy lights strung through madrona branches and a playlist of their intertwined tunes. Friends toasted with craft ciders, stories flowing freer than the Duwamish at high tide. But beneath the revelry, Elias sensed undercurrents. Whispers about Lila's lingering bitterness, questions about timelines that poked at old wounds. Ronan, ever the optimist, brushed it off during a hike up Rattlesnake Ledge, boots crunching gravel as vistas of Snoqualmie Pass unfolded below. "We're building something solid, Eli. Let the noise fade." Elias nodded, but his mind snagged on a recent email from his agent. A book deal offer for a memoir graphic novel hybrid, pitched as the ghostwriter who became the muse. Tempting but terrifying, exposing the raw underbelly of their origin. What if putting it on paper reopens the scars? Ronan paused at the summit, wind tousling his hair, hand slipping into Elias's. "Then we bleed together, like always." The proposal ring glinted, a talisman against doubt. They had chosen it in a Marfa silversmith's shop, Ronan engraving the inner band with "Refrain Found." Elias wore it daily, a quiet rebellion against his history of invisibility. Back in the city, domesticity wove its spell. Mornings in their shared apartment, Ronan's guitar cases mingling with Elias's notebooks, coffee brewing to the hum of KXP radio. Elias dove into the memoir, pages filling with vignettes, the sodden envelope in the gutter, the Tractor Tavern's amber haze. Writing felt like excavation, unearthing fossils of fear and forging them into artifacts of grace. But conflict simmered anew when Ronan's manager, a slick Ballard type named Kendra, scheduled a press junket. "Big push for the wedding single," she said over Zoom, her smile all teeth, "and address the Lila drama head-on. Spin it positive." Ronan balked in their kitchen post-call, pacing tiles worn smooth. "Spin? Like we're a PR stunt." Elias closed his laptop, sensing the fracture. "It's business. You've done it before, for albums, tours. Not for us." Ronan's voice cracked, vulnerability flashing. "This is sacred." The argument escalated softly at first, words like barbs and velvet. Elias accusing Ronan of retreating to artist mode, Ronan countering with Elias's memoir as exploitation. "You're commodifying our pain. Art's always that," Elias shot back. "You taught me. Turn ache to anthem." Silence stretched, taut as a low E string. They slept apart that night, Elias on the couch, staring at ceiling cracks like fault lines. Dawn brought contrition. Ronan slipped in with 2 mugs, kneeling by the cushions. "I'm scarred, Ellie, of losing the rawness if we polish it for cameras." Elias sat up, pulling him onto the couch. "Then we do it raw. No spin, just truth." The junket unfolded in a downtown hotel suite, skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling glass. Reporters circled like gulls, questions probing. Was the ghostwriting a deliberate queer awakening? How does Lila factor into your narrative? Ronan fielded most, hand anchored in Elias's. But when a podcaster pressed on betrayal, Elias leaned in. "It wasn't betrayal. It was blindness, mine, his, hers. We all wrote stories we didn't own until we claimed them." The clip went viral, headlines praising the poets of pain. Backlash followed, trolls decrying woke propaganda. But supporters amplified. Queer youth demanding thanks, a Maine librarian inviting Elias for a hometown reading. Emboldened, Elias finished the memoir draft, titling it Unsent Refrain. He read excerpts at a launch party in a Fremont warehouse, fairy lights twinkling like captured stars. Ronan performed interludes, guitar underscoring the prose. Theo emceed, cracking jokes about finally getting rent on time. Lila didn't attend, but sent flowers, white lilies, note reading, to new chapters. Fall crept in with amber leaves carpeting Gas Works Park, where they walked one crisp afternoon, hands swinging loose. "Ever regret the letters?" Ronan asked, skipping a stone across Lake Union. "Regret hiding? Yeah. But not writing them. They were the map to here." Ronan nodded, pulling him close amid the rustling willows. Their kiss tasted of lake mist and maple, a seal on seasons past. Wedding plans bloomed tentative, small. In a main lighthouse Elias's family owned. Waves crashing like applause. Invites went out. Theo as best man. Kendra handling logistics with surprising tenderness. But as dates neared, old ghosts stirred. Elias's father, a stoic lobsterman named Harlan, called from Ellsworth. Proud of you, son. But this, it's a lot for the old guard. The word stung, paternal approval a currency Elias had chased since boyhood. It's my truth, Dad. Hope you can stand with it. Harlan's pause echoed transatlantic. I'll try. For you. Ronan sensed the weight during a rehearsal dinner prep in Seattle, helping Elias fold napkins in their kitchen. He'll come around. Or he won't. But you're enough. The ceremony loomed, a beacon amid brewing storms. A week out, Lila resurfaced, not with vitriol but vulnerability. A coffee meet in Pioneer Square, her treat. She arrived composed, curls tamed, camera absent. Needed to say it face to face, she began, stirring latte foam. I was angry, felt used. But hearing you too, it's real. I envied that before. Elias sipped his Americano, guard softening. You deserved better than borrowed words. She smiled, faint. We all do. Write me into your book? As the catalyst, not the casualty. Deal. The wedding dawned foggy over Penobscot Bay, the lighthouse beam cutting mist like a vow. Guests gathered 30 strong. Eclectic. Seattle artists in linen, Maine fishermen in pressed khakis. Harlan stood at the aisle's end, eyes damp, arm linked with Elias's mother, Clara, her quilted shawl a hug from afar. Ronan waited at the altar, chambray suit rumpled just right, compass tattoo winking, vows exchanged simple. I promise to read you daily, write you eternal. Rings slid on, silver singing against skin. The reception spilled onto cliffs, fiddles and banjos dueling with gulls' cries. Theo's toast roasted Ronan's cowboy charm, drawing laughs. As dusk bruised the sky, Elias and Ronan slipped away to the lantern room, city lights twinkling distant. We made it, Ronan murmured, forehead to Elias's. Through the ink and the ache. Below, waves whispered benedictions. Betrayal had been the storm. Love, the lighthouse. In its beam, they found not just each other, but selves unhosted, free, compassionate, whole. Years later, with a son named River, tousled curls and curious eyes, they would return, telling him the story over lobster rolls. How letters bridged chasms, how truth, once voiced, echoes forever. The message lingered, humanistic him. In vulnerability's forge, identity gleams. In love's unscripted lines, we all find home. Winter wrapped Seattle in its familiar embrace, holiday lights threading the gloom like promises kept. Elias and Ronan's life post-wedding settled into a rhythm both ordinary and profound. Mornings with River's giggles echoing off kitchen cabinets. Evenings where Ronan strummed lullabies and Elias penned bedtime tales of wandering guitars and whispering waves. The memoir, published to quiet acclaim, became a touchstone for readers navigating their own hidden scripts, fan letters piling like snowdrifts. Your words gave me courage to come out. But peace, Elias learned, was a garden requiring weeding. Subtle conflicts arose. Ronan's touring itch flaring against family tethers. Elias's freelance deadlines clashing with preschool pickups. One January eve, as sleet lashed the windows, it crested. Ronan paced, tour binder in hand, a spring jaunt through the Rockies. Just 3 weeks, Eli, for the new album. Elias rocked River on his hip, the toddler's fist tangled in his hair. And us? River asks for dada songs every night. Feels like you're ghosting your own life. Ronan stopped, binder slapping the counter. This is my life. Music's in my blood. Can't drain it for domesticity. The word hung accusatory. Elias's chest tightened, old insecurities rising like bile. Domesticity? Is that what you call us now? After everything? River whimpered, sensing the rift, and Ronan softened, kneeling to scoop him up. Not like that. I'm torn is all. Love you both fierce. but the road calls. They tabled it with bedtime routines, stories of lighthouse keepers who chase stars. But sleep evaded Elias, curled alone in their king bed. He scrolled old photos, the sodden envelope, a relic framed on his desk. Ronan's proposal in Marfa, knees dusty. Had the letters been a prelude to this? A romance scripted in highs, fraying in the mundane? Dawn brought mediation. Theo arrived with donuts, neutral ground. Over coffee, he mediated. You're both creators, needing space to breathe. Compromise. Shorter tours, family legs. Ronan nodded first. Guest spots for you and the kid. Duets with daddy. Elias relented, hugging River closer. Deal. But no more ghosts. Spring thawed the impasse, the tour a family odyssey. River in a carrier, babbling to canyon echoes. In Bozeman, Montana, amid Bridger Peaks, they debuted a family track, Little Refrain. River's coos layered in. Audiences melted, parents in the crowd tearing up. Yet deeper currents stirred when Harlan visited from Maine, grizzled and gruff, bearing a carved wooden boat for River. Over chowder at Pike Place, he pulled Elias aside. Seeing you settled is good, but I failed you back then. The hiding, the silence. Wish I'd written better words. Elias's throat bobbed. Forgiveness a quiet tide. You're here now. That's the rewrite. Harlan clapped his shoulder, eyes averted to the ferry's churning. Proud son. Of the man, the family. The gesture mended fractures Elias hadn't named. A humanistic bridge across generational chasms. Summer brought Lila back into orbit, not as specter but ally. She emailed about a collaborative project. A photo essay book pairing her bayou portraits with Elias's prose, themed Unwritten Paths. Closure's a myth, she wrote. But creation? That's redemption. They met in New Orleans. River toddling through Jackson Square amid street performers. Lila captured them. Ronan mid-laugh, Elias tracing beignet sugar from River's chin, her lens forgiving. Over a to fee in the Garden District, she confessed. I dated someone after. A woman. The letters. They stirred that awake. Elias raised his glass. To paths crossing, then diverging true. The book, Bayou Echoes, launched in fall, a bestseller in indie circles. Reviews lauded its tender humanism. Messages of identity fluid as the Mississippi. But climax brewed in autumn's amber, when Ronan's label pushed a biopic, scripted gloss on his rise, with the letters as romantic MacGuffin. The screenwriter, a Hollywood import named Vance, arrived for consults, all slick suits and sidelong glances at Ronan. Elias caught it first. Vance's hand lingering on Ronan's arm during story sessions, compliments laced with innuendo. Jealousy, that old thief, crept in. One night, post-dinner with Vance at a Capitol Hill bistro, Elias confronted. He's circling you like a vulture, flirting under research. Ronan chuckled, pouring wine. Paranoid. Eli. Is harmless. Networking. Harmless? Like the groupies on tour? Or Lila's closure? The barb landed low, dredging betrayals past. Ronan's face darkened. That's not fair. I've been clean, transparent. Elias shoved back from the table, chair scraping. Transparent? Or just blind again? I won't be the ghostwriter to your midlife script. He stormed into the rain-slick night, walking aimlessly toward the locks, salmon leaping futile against currents. Hours later, Ronan found him on a bench, drenched and defiant. Vance is out, Ronan said, umbrella sheltering them both. Told him the story's ours, no embellishments. Elias looked up, water streaking his face. Scared of losing you. To the shine, the stories. Ronan knelt in the puddle, gripping his hands. You're my story, Eli. The only one worth telling. They mended in therapy. A couples counselor in Belltown, sessions unpacking fame's temptations, trust's fragile weave. Vance's script was scrapped. They co-wrote the biopic outline themselves, centering the letters as awakening, not artifice. Winter solstice brought River's second birthday. A party in Discovery Park with Theo's puppet show and Clara's flown-in whoopie pies. Harlan Skyped from Maine, beaming at his grandson's cake-smeared grin. As snow dusted the meadows, Elias reflected. Conflicts weren't endings, but evolutions. Betrayals transmuted to bonds. The year closed with a New Year's Eve gig at the Moore Theater, Ronan and Elias harmonizing Refrain Eternal. River on stage in footy pajamas, waving a maraca. The crowd's roar washed over them, a wave of affirmation. In quiet aftermath, curled by the fireplace, Ronan whispered, "Here's to unwritten tomorrows." Elias kissed his temple. "With all the words we need." Their legacy unfolded. Workshops for queer writers in Seattle community centers. River growing amid tales of ink and ember. The message endured, romantic and raw. Love demands confrontation, compassion its compass. In authenticity's light, even ghosts find flesh. Adolescence arrived for River like a squall off the sound. Sudden, fierce, testing the hull of their home. At 12, he was all limbs and questions. Dark hair inherited from Elias falling into eyes that sparked with Ronan's mischief. Seattle had shaped him. Bike rides through Green Lake's cherry groves, summer camps in the Cascades where he learned guitar from Ronan's old roadie. But puberty's tides brought tempests. Crushes unspoken, identity's fog rolling thick. It started subtly. River withdrawing from family jams, holing up with headphones and a journal Elias recognized too well. Bound in leather, pages for secrets. One autumn afternoon, post-school, Elias found him on the apartment's fire escape, sketching waves that looked like unraveling ropes. Rough day. Elias leaned against the railing, offering a thermos of hot cider. River shrugged, pencil pausing. Just stuff. Like, who am I under all this? The question echoed Elias's own youth. Maine winters pondering the same in attic shadows. The best stuff's found in the trying. Remember the letters? Dad and I wrote our way to truth. River's gaze flicked sharp. Yeah, but yours worked out. What if mine doesn't? Elias sat beside him, the city's hum a distant lullaby. It will. Messy, maybe, but yours. Ronan, sensing the shift, initiated mandates. Hikes up MTC where silences stretched safe. Father-son talks on cragginess of self. But conflict crested when River came home from a sleepover, face storm-clouded, slamming his door. Elias knocked later, entering to find him curled on the bed, journal clutched like armor. Talk to me, kid. River's voice muffled. They called me, for liking Jamie. He's a boy. The slur hung, venom from playground whispers. Elias's heart clenched, memories flashing. Locker room taunts in Ellsworth High. He sat on the bed's edge, hand light on River's shoulder. Words like that? They're cowards' arrows. Miss the mark on who you are. River sat up, eyes red but defiant. What if I am gay, like you guys? Elias pulled him into a hug, Ronan's cue to join from the hall. Then you're in good company. Loved fierce, just as. The family huddled then, Ronan sharing his Texas trials. First crush on a rodeo clown, hidden under hay bales. Took years to own it. Don't wait that long. Support networks wove tight. Theo's theater group for queer youth. Lila visiting from her New Orleans studio with photography workshops on capturing your core. River bloomed tentative, joining the group, his journal filling with poems. Raw, rhythmic, echoing his father's cadence. But adolescence's drama peaked in spring, River's first school dance looming. Crushes clarified. Jamie, freckled and funny, with a laugh like wind chimes. Invites exchanged awkward via notes, but backlash brewed. Whispers turning to exclusion, a shove in the halls. Ronan and Elias met with the principal, a no-nonsense woman in Fremont, advocating without armor. Bullying's a symptom, she said. We address roots, education, empathy. Homefront strained. River's anger lashing out, accusing them of making it weird by hovering. One night, dinner devolved, forks clattering as he stormed. "You had your story. Let me screw up mine." Elias followed to his room, door ajar. "We're not scripting you, River. Just scaffolding." River deflated, tears tracking. Scared he won't like the real me, Ronan entered, guitar in hand. "Then play him a song. Truth's the best hook." The dance night arrived crisp. River in a button-down borrowed from Elias, nerves electric. They drove him to the gym, aglow with streamers and bass thumps. From the parking lot, they watched him enter, shoulders squared. Jamie waiting inside, grin wide. Midnight pickup brought glow. Flushed cheeks, stories tumbling. Slow dances, stolen sips of punch. "He likes me back," River beamed. Pride swelled, humanistic bomb. But growth's path twisted when Jamie's parents pulled him from the school, citing influences. River shattered, blame arrowing inward. "My fault for being us." The family rallied, letters to the district, community petitions. Lila flew in, documenting the fight for an advocacy series. Theo hosted game nights, distractions laced with depth. Climax unfolded at a school board meeting, packed with allies. Queer elders sharing scars, parents decrying division. River spoke, voice steady. "I'm not a phase or a problem. I'm River Whitaker Hawthorne, and I deserve the same dance as anyone." The board relented, policy shifts promised. Jamie returned, friendships mending in cafeteria corners. Summer healed, a road trip echoing their own. Camping in Yellowstone, geysers erupting like catharsis. Around campfires, stories circled. Elias's unsent letters, Ronan's hidden anthems, River's dance floor triumph. Back home, River's poems published in a youth anthology, dedication, "To the ghosts who taught me to sing." Elias watched him strum Ronan's old six-string, harmony budding. Betrayal's echoes, from Lila's lash to hallway cruelty, faded to lessons. Compassion cultivates courage, freedom flowers in familial fierce. As autumn leaves turned, the family gathered for harvest. Pumpkin patches in Kent, hayrides laughter-filled. Ronan raised a cider toast. To stories shared, selves unveiled. Elias clinked, River's hand in his. And the refrains yet to come. In quiet nights, Elias penned addendums to his memoir. Chapters on fatherhood's forge, identity's inheritance. The message deepened, romantic in its reach. Love's not solitary script, but collective verse. Humanity's hymn to hearts laid bare. Decades distilled time like aged whiskey, smoothing edges while deepening flavors. Elias, now 62, sat on the deck of their Bainbridge Island home. Ferry horns saluting from Eagle Harbor. The house, bought with memoir royalties and tour residuals, perched on a bluff, cedars whispering to salt air. A studio where Ronan still tinkered tunes. Arthritis gnawed Elias's knuckles, but his pen flowed steady, a new novel brewing. Echoes unbound, tales of elders reclaiming queer narratives. Ronan, 65, emerged with mugs, herbal tea for creaky joints. His beard silvered, gait slowed but spirit unbowed. River called. He's bringing the grandkids tomorrow. Juniper's got a poem recital. Elias smiled, accepting the mug. Their son, 44, had carved his path. A Portland folk poet, married to Jamie, freckles faded, but love enduring. Raising two. Juniper, 10, with River's curiosity. Sage, 8, Ronan's mischief. Life's arc had curved gentle. Ronan's retirement from Rhodes, mentoring workshops in Seattle's queer spaces. Elias's professorship at UW, lecturing on narrative as resistance. Lila, a lifelong friend, collaborated still. Her photos gracing his book jackets, her Bayou home a biannual retreat. Yet age unearthed subtle conflicts, health's betrayals, regrets resurfacing like driftwood. Ronan's diagnosis came first, early Parkinson's, a tremor in his picking hand. Just a stutter in the song, he joked during the consult. But Elias saw the fear, the phantom of lost melody. Elias supported fierce research dives, adaptive guitars from a luthier in Ballard. But Ronan withdrew, canceling a guest spot at Rivers' reading. Don't want pity claps. The rift widened, echoing old patterns. Elias confronted over breakfast, bacon sizzling accusatory. Hiding again, like the letters, pouring into art, starving the rest. Ronan's fork paused, eyes misting. Scarred, Eli. A fading, of not being enough. Elias reached across, hands linking, rings dulled but dear. You're the chorus. Always. Therapy resumed, silver-haired now, unpacking mortality's mirror. Ronan emerged, tremor and all, joining Rivers' event. Fingers faltering on strings, but voice soaring true. Audience wept, Juniper hugging him post-recital. You're my hero, Pops. Elias's own shadow loomed in 70's approach, a biopsy for a lung spot, clean but cautionary. River fretted, flying in with kids, Jamie cooking main comfort, chowder steaming, stories of dances past. Family wove tighter, game nights with Sage's wild charades, Juniper's poetry slams where she recited Elias's lines with 12-year-old fire. Harlan, long past, lived in anecdotes, his carved boat now Juniper's treasure. Climax crested in a Whitaker-Hawthorne reunion, Maine lighthouse for the 50th anniversary. Waves crashed eternal, guests a tapestry. Theo, gray but grinning. Lila, camera-clicking legacies. Portland kin mingling with Seattle strays. Vows renewed under Beam's sweep. Ronan's voice, tremor soft, still writing our refrain. Elias's reply, and reading you eternal. But nightfall brought revelation. Lila, tipsy on porch rockers, confessing a letter she'd held decades. One Elias ghostwrote, never sent, found in her things. It was for me, wasn't it? The purity I envied. Elias nodded, peace settling. A bridge to my truth. Thank you for crossing it. She teared, hugging fierce. We all ghosted once. Now we're solid. The gathering peaked in bonfire tales. Rivers dance triumph, Sages coming out at 6. I like dresses and dinosaurs. Juniper's first crush on a girl with galaxies in her eyes. Laughter warded autumn chill, stars pricking the dome. Back on Bainbridge, winters softened with grandkids' visits. Snowmen on the bluff, Ronan teaching chords adapted, Elias spinning yarns of unsent loves. Conflicts resolved in time's grace. Health's hurdles leaped together, regrets reframed as rich soil. One eve, as Aurora flirted southern skies, a rare show, Elias and Ronan bundled on the deck, blankets shared. Best plot twist, Ronan murmured, head on Elias's shoulder. You, Elias whispered, the muse who wrote back. Their kiss, slow as sunset, held lifetimes. Betrayal's ancient sting? A prologue to this epilogue. Love's deep romance, humanistic heart. Compassion endures, freedom ages into wisdom, identity, eternal ink. River's family arrived at dawn next day, chaos joyful. As Juniper recited by the hearth, poem of lighthouses and lovers, Elias watched Ronan's eyes shine, tremor stilled in pride. The story closed not with fanfare, but quiet coda, lives intertwined, refrains resounding. In every unsent word, a sent truth. In every ghost, a guardian found.